Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, and brings awareness to all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today, I'm joined by Dominic Kennedy, who works with JCT Assistive Technology. Hi, Dom. How are you doing today?
Hey, Matt. I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Excellent. So, just in your own words, can you tell me a little bit about your business and what you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So JCT we're essentially a IT company, but we produce and install the hardware and software that runs the communications equipment in healthcare facilities, if you like. And we've been doing that we're in our 22nd year now of operation.
Okay, excellent. And what was the kind of precursor to starting the business, or how did it come about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the company was originally founded by a gentleman who obviously no longer works for the organisation. It was a long time ago now. And since then, we've come on board and over the course of the past 22 years, procured some other organisations to sort of upskill the organisation, if you like, and has allowed us to enter other areas of the healthcare sector.
Excellent. No worries. And I suppose your system, there's from what I understand, there's a paging platform and a nurse call system. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So traditionally, JCT has been producing nurse call systems. That's really the company's bread and butter. It's something that we've been doing since the company's inception, and it's still something that we do to this day. And of course, all the software that runs those nurse call systems as well is something that we still very much are a part of. But there is also the assistive technology component to the business as well. And we've been doing that for, pre-NDIS. So sort of going on 10 years now in terms of our assistive technology.
Okay, wow. Yeah, excellent. Because my next question was, how's your technology used in kind of an SDA or NDIS setting, I suppose?
Yeah, certainly. So we coordinate and install and design, for that matter, much of the home automation, if you like, and the software component of NDIS development. So I suppose to give you an example, much of the UPS and the battery backup component of these builds, all the way through to door automation, the communications equipment, and also the automation component of the project.
Oh wow! So that's a lot. That's a lot more than I thought. Kind of when I first thought about your business, because those components would kind of set you guys apart, I suppose. Because I don't imagine too many organisations that do assistive technology would go the entire route with backup generators. Or
we take on a lot. There's no doubt about that. It's very easy to try and be everything to everybody, but we do have a fair bit of experience in doing it. And I mean, the best way that I could probably describe it is most of our work fits within the electrical package of a project. So everything that you would generally find in the electrical package, we're doing, as well as the electrical component of it as well, in the event that the builder or the developer chooses us to take on the whole part of the project. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And how does you must have competitors in this space? How does your product, I suppose, how's it different? What are the advantages of what you do? How do you see yourself as kind of setting yourself apart from other people in the industry?
Yeah, it's a good question, and you're right. There are a lot of competitors in this space, and I suspect there's going to be more and more as the NDIS really sort of gets a foothold in the market. My answer would be really, I suspect, really from an integration point of view. you are right. There's many people out there that are doing door automation or perhaps battery backups or even intercom. But we try and tick all of those boxes, and more importantly, the integration component of that project. We get it all to talk.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Excellent. No worries. Because I feel like a lot of businesses would just they'd kind of do one component, or they do or they do loose things where they put together things which maybe don't work in a way which is completely intuitive or lines up to, I suppose, what's expected and how they should work together, I guess. Yeah,
that's right. And a lot of businesses will try and tick the boxes of the NDIS design standard, and that's okay. We probably like to go one step further and make sure that the particular build has been provisioned for future automation or changes in the needs of the particular residents that are living within that building.
Right. Yep. Yeah. No worries. And are you guys operating in what areas are you operating in?
So we're nationwide. We've got a presence in every state and territory in the country. Our head office and our main warehouse is here in Adelaide and always has been. But we've got a presence in every state and territory. So we've got satellite offices in all of those areas. But quite often, depending on the size of the project, it's quite possible that our technicians, for example, might hop on an aeroplane or jump in the car, depending on where that particular project is, and head over. If not, it'll be the technicians working out of that particular satellite office.
Okay, no worries. How do you actually find the market in terms of SDA doing assistive technology in SDA homes in South Australia?
Yeah, it's a funny one in South Australia. We've come across some developments where I think the standard of work has been a little undesirable, would probably be the best way of putting it. But on the same token, we've worked with some developers and some builders that are probably doing some of the best stuff we've seen in the country. So I think there is the polar opposites, really. I think there's some builders and some developers out there that are really doing amazing stuff and have a really, really good idea of the design standards and also what they want to have in their developments. So yeah, there's a bit of both.
Yeah, because that's kind of what we've noticed, because I feel like the South Australian market is a lot less mature compared to, say, Queensland, New South Wales, and some parts of Victoria. But at the same time, there's the opportunity there to kind of learn from, I guess, the learnings that have occurred in the other states to put forth like a better solution, I suppose.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What I would say that I suspect that in the states where some of the developers are probably less educated in this area, I think they're quickly catching up. And it won't take too long before they are on par with many other developers around the country. But yeah, I certainly agree with that. The one thing I'd probably say to that is where I think South Australia led the way in some respects is actually from the state government many years ago, where they actually implemented some very large projects, and JCT was involved in some of those, where they were installing assistive technology into government-funded houses. And this is well before the NDIS. So our government, our state government here, I think was well ahead of the curve when it came to assistive technology.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so since you guys started, how many houses have you, or I suppose SDAs, have you outfitted with your technology?
Yeah, so as a whole, JCT has just a tickle over 300 installations across the country in terms of all of our technology. That includes nurse call systems, paging systems, software systems, and assistive technology. Of that, we're sort of just a dash over 60 houses now that have NDIS technology within them. And when I say houses, some of them aren't just houses. Some of those projects are, sort of multi-story, multi-apartment developments.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So that would be, where you have a collection. So in a situation like that, would you have, I suppose, integration towards a central hub for like the units in the establishment or whatnot?
100%. Yeah. So in a project, that particularly is multi-level and multi-apartment, typically we will install one of our head ends and the relevant software to run everything within that building. Correct. So that engine will be running everything from the CCTV, the access control, door automation, for example, and of course all the assistive technology within each apartment.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's excellent. So do you find any particular technology is more sought after, or people, I suppose, are looking for it more, or that you feel the market really yearns for, I suppose?
Yeah, I think the key one, what we're finding is that most of the developers and the builders and even the consulting engineers, for example, that are involved in these projects, the first things first, they want to make sure that they are ticking all the boxes of the NDIS design standard. And that's a no-brainer, and including the best practices within that standard as well are very important. Above and beyond that, the thing that we're finding, I think the one thing that is the most critical and the most important is ensuring that the building is well provisioned for future technology. The provisioning component of these builds is just so important. Whereas there might not be certain technology within a building to start off with, it's quite possible in the future that whatever resident or client that's living within that residency may need or may require other technology that wasn't in place at the beginning. And if that has been provisioned for properly and properly designed, well, then there's no problems.
Yeah, because we often comment on the need for future provisioning for houses, because ultimately, compared to the onset of SDA and NDIS, there's been a lot of changes in terms of what people require and then also what they expect in terms of the technology and provisioning for a house. And it's very much anticipated that's going to obviously change immensely in the next decade, 2 decades, because I feel like NDIS is still in its early days in terms of how the government and people who are active stakeholders in the community think about it.
Agreed. And it's certainly still finding its way, and the NDIS and the design standards that we all need to adhere to will, with no doubt, be changing over the next decade, and I suspect it will be changing quite dramatically. And when those changes do occur, we want to make sure from a technology provider, and also to ensure that our clients, their developments have been well provisioned in the event that there's quite possibly quite a large fundamental change in what is required within the requirements.
Yeah, excellent. And in terms of your role and what you do you ever I suppose liaise or speak with participants or active users of your technology and get their feedback on how they find the technology, how they find the systems you integrate?
I literally had one this morning. Yeah, we're doing it regularly. So our organisation talks with not only developers in terms of an overall project, but yes, we are talking to individual participants quite regularly, learning a little bit more about what their needs are, and taking it back to our team, who can quite often develop certain technology or certain software in the event that sort of software is not out there in the market at the moment. To give you an example, we were talking to a client only this morning who's hearing impaired, and working with them to develop some software that's going to allow them to contact their carers when they need to. Right.
Yeah. Because I feel like there's a bit of a discrepancy when it comes to people who create the technology and the people who actually use the technology. And a lot of, particularly this is, I suppose, more of a thing about 2 or 3 years ago, there was just a lot of where different sides of the whole NDIS space just weren't in contact enough to actually know critically what's required and the best way to provide care in a way which is actually purpose-built for a participant.
Yeah, that's correct, and it's all well and good to develop some technology and install it within a building. But if you are not there to regularly maintain that technology and also communicate with the people that are living within that building in terms of what's working, what's not, how we can improve on it, you probably really shouldn't be doing it. It's an ever-evolving space, and quite often, and some of your listeners would understand this. Quite often, a resident might move out, and a new resident will move in for a variety of different reasons. And when that happens, that new resident might have a vastly different set of needs and requirements in terms of technology, and that's really that's a reset and a clean slate in terms of starting again with the technology. And if it's been well provisioned and it's been well designed, you can usually work with that resident quite quickly to help fix their needs.
Yep, and kind of adapt to changing participants' needs, I suppose.
Definitely.
What have been kind of their general feedback maybe before, if they live somewhere else and then they use your technology, or have you encountered any feedback that you found that was eye-opening and you realised, you didn't realise there was a perception out there in terms of the needs of certain participants?
Our feedback typically has been that many participants didn't even realise this sort of technology existed, which is really, really positive. More often than not, the feedback we get is or how excited people are by this technology, but also it's a really exciting time for many participants. Quite often they're potentially moving out of home, or they're moving out of more an institutional environment and moving into their very first, their first home, really. So it's a very, very exciting time. And when you mix some of this technology in with a brand new, a brand new apartment or a brand new home, it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, because that really just opens up their world in terms of possibilities.
Yeah, it does. We love being involved in it. It's an exciting time for everybody. Yeah.
Excellent. So in terms of your business, is there any goals for this year, or different areas you'd like to grow, or things that you're working on?
Yeah, look, we're always evolving, and JCT's always had quite a strong research and development component to our business. So we have electrical engineers and also software developers as well. So much of the feedback that we receive on the ground gets fed back to those teams. So there's always development going on behind the scenes. Can't give too much away, Matt, in terms of some of the things that the company's got on the horizon. But yes, certainly. I think this year, or what's left of 2023, certainly we're focusing on the assistive technology side of our business, and also finishing off some projects that we've already commenced with some of our clients. It's full steam ahead.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. I suppose this is a more broader question. Is there any changes you'd like to see to the NDIS in terms of as they relate to your business?
Yeah, I'd probably revert back to the design standard. I think everyone can probably agree that the design standard is fairly ambiguous. It was written obviously a few years ago now, and it's probably due to be rewritten in certain areas. And as a technology provider, we would be all for that. It is quite an ambiguous document, and I think there's been probably enough water under the bridge now to work on areas of the design standard and make sure that it's more appropriate. That would probably be one thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, because I feel the same way, where we've probably had enough data and enough information at this stage to kind of rework it, work out kind of what's working, what's not, to more of a formalized or unambiguous set of standards, I suppose.
Yeah, we definitely agree with that for sure.
Yep. And if someone was, going to use your technology to, an investor, for instance, creating a new SDA project, would you have any advice for them?
It's all in the design, and engage, depending on the size of the project, engage with an electrical contractor or even an electrical engineer, for example, or project manager that's got some experience and a strong understanding of NDIS developments, because it is really all in the design and the provisioning, and particularly when it comes to our component of these projects, because you can save yourself a lot of headaches and a lot of money in the long run. I listened to a podcast of yours with Min probably a week or so ago, and he was talking to a gentleman about fire sprinklers. I know that's a very big talking point within the NDIS community at the moment. That's a fantastic example of JCT's come into a few projects fairly early on in the piece and integrated with the fire sprinkler system within some of these projects. That's allowed, to open all the doors, for example, within the facility, and a proper integration with the fire panel or the building management system. If those sorts of things aren't thought of or designed in the design stage of these sorts of projects, it can be a bit of a nightmare at the end.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I've been kind of speaking to people who want to get involved in the SDA space, and I've just been kind of mentioning that, you can retrofit these things later, but often it creates a lot more of an intuitive system. It's done at the time, and in most cases, it's a lot cheaper.
Retrofitting is always going to be expensive, particularly when we're talking about a high physical support building, which 99% of our technology goes into. Retrofitting components, cabling, electrical wiring, these sorts of things can be a very expensive exercise, given that, as we know, fire sprinkler systems and particularly high physical buildings have a lot of fire redundancies in place. It's not just that. It's not just that easy just to recable something. So if these sorts of things are thought of and designed within the design stage, yes, you can save yourself a lot of dramas.
So in the case of someone, say, approaching you for your services, when should they approach you, or what would be the first steps to doing that?
Yeah, it's a good question. We get approached at a number of different stages. Like I said, we've been approached. This is certainly not ideal, but we've been approached halfway through a build, and that was quite common early on in the piece with the NDIS. Certainly don't advise that, doing that. Certainly don't do that. But typically, when builders, for example, or architects are designing the actual building itself, if you'd like to engage JCT at that time, we'll actually take a fairly consultative and advisory role in terms of the technology. That's generally the best way to do it. We quite often work hand in hand and directly with the electrician and the builder.
Perfect. That's awesome. To just fully integrate, like you said.
Yeah, that's it. Because if it's done after the fact, and like I said, we've seen plenty of examples where it's been done after the fact. Look, I've witnessed high physical support builds, for example, that are actually missing fairly large components of the technology requirement. So, and like we've already mentioned, retrofitting those sometimes can be very, very challenging. So the best thing to do is really during the design of the actual build itself.
Yeah, I would have assumed that. Yeah, excellent. Awesome. It's been great talking to you today, Dominic. Would you like to maybe just speak on how people can get in contact with you if they're curious about what you guys do, or they want to get you guys involved in their project?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's a number of different mechanisms in terms of contacting JCT. The best way to do it is via our website, where there's some contact forms there on our contact page. We've got support at jct.com.au is a great email, just to flick an email through an inquiry, and a member of our team will get it and distribute it off to the right department. Or you're even welcome to talk to me directly if you like. I have a lot of contact with the developers and with the builders, so you're welcome to always contact me on my email as well.
Excellent. Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. Thanks so much for spending some time today with me to explain your business and what you guys do.
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it, and we're really enjoying your podcast. I know there's a number of members of our team that enjoy listening to it, so keep it up.
Excellent. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll be back on the next podcast. Thanks, guys.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.